Hello, everyone, and welcome to How to Secure Your Databases from Ransomware and Get Your Time Back. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this timely discussion. But before we get to today's outstanding presentation, we do have a few housekeeping items you need to know to help you get the most out of this session. So first off, we want this to be an informative event for you. So we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. Now that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be having. So first thing you want to do if you're having an issue hearing or seeing any slides or anything is to do a browser refresh. If that doesn't work, let us know that you're still having problems and we will hop right on it. All right, next, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find a number of important resources, including a link to our Gorilla Guide book club, which has our vast library of printed resources on technology topics. We have links to the Actual Tech Media Events Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. Excuse me. Check those out. There's probably a number of them that you will be interested in, so sign up today for those. Okay, next, at the end of this webinar event, we'll be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Remember that you do have to be in attendance during the entire event to qualify for the prize. If you're interested in reading more about the terms and conditions, you can also find those in the handouts section. Very exciting reading, that particular stuff. All right, so let's move on to the main event. I'm excited about this, and I hope you are too. Today, we are going to be joined by a couple of experts from Rubrik who are Justin Rees and Sean McElhenney. They are ready to go. Justin, it is great to have you. You've got the mic, so take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our webinar on how to secure your databases from ransomware and get your time back. So great to have all of you with us here today. As mentioned, my name is Justin Rees. I'm a product marketing manager here at Rubrik. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by Sean, who's one of our amazing database solution architects here at Rubrik. Sean comes with a ton of experience on the database side and actually has a lot of experience on the customer side and has done a bunch of consulting as well. So I, for one, am very excited to have him here with us today. We're very lucky to have him. Sean, did you want to say a quick few words?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Sean McElhenney again, database solutions architect here with Rubrik. Been here for about 3 years. And prior to that, I was a DBA for about 25 years, as Justin said, in various capacities, whether it be consulting in private sector, public sector. So I've seen quite a bit of solutions over the course of my career, and hopefully we can talk through some of them and help you make sense of what's out there and what's going on in the world.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, as you know, your business runs on data, and databases help make, most of that critical data in your business and make it useful. And so securing that data has become essential to your organization's business resilience. And so today we're actually excited to share with you how Rubrik keeps your databases and your business running in the face of any threat. And so we'll start by taking a quick look at the current landscape, exploring the key challenges that database teams are facing related to database protection. But we'll also look at the required capabilities that we've identified that database teams need to prioritize to keep their database data resilient as a result, before finally showing you how Rubrik addresses each of these requirements and how we can help. Last but not least, we'll close things out with a few housekeeping things, some additional resources that I think you'll find useful. So pretty packed agenda for you today, so let's dive in. So starting at the top, as you already know, your databases power applications that run your company. And so what that means is if your databases are down, your business is probably down. And so one of our first reports from Rubrik Zero Labs called The State of Data Security, it found that 98% of organizations reported experiencing a cyber attack which means that your organization is most likely experienced, one of these at some point along the line. And it has never been more critical for organizations to get their databases protected and quickly recoverable, really to ensure that your business can get brought back online quickly. Speed and confidence is really the name of the game here. However, this is a lot easier said than done. The DBA's job and database teams, it's really more difficult now than ever before. And it only promises to get more challenging as the volume, the variety, and the complexity of applications and data actually increase across the cloud and on premises. And so what you see on the screen is a common database environment. You have production databases, backup storage, copies and restores all over the place. But these approaches to backup and recovery really leave databases kind of susceptible and vulnerable. They create silos. They make it difficult for database teams, IT admins, and SecOps really to work together to meet the business objectives and ultimately protect these systems. And so DBAs not only, are they having to manage hundreds or even thousands of databases, jobs, backups, and all of the other, kind of ancillary systems that make common tasks and administration possible, but now they have to increasingly kind of worry about ransomware and other cyber attacks. And as we know, the goal of ransomware is just to deny you access to your own systems. And what's the DBA in charge of? The databases and the data contained within them. And so when ransomware attacks a database and the database backups, it's a very bad day to be a DBA. Your business needs to respond faster and analyze more data to remain competitive and resilient. And so this results in applications needing more specialized databases for every use case. Actually, Gartner estimates that enterprises spending on databases has actually doubled from 2017 till today, from roughly 38 billion just to shy of the $80 billion mark today. And so a typical enterprise, uses legacy databases for legacy applications. There's a variety of cloud and on-premises databases for analytics. There's in-memory databases for demanding applications. There's document databases to power dynamic applications, and so on. Each of these databases, have their own tools for backup and restore, along with different business SLAs. And so dealing with this complexity is expensive. It creates silos, like we mentioned, and it increases the overall risk to the critical data that it'll be left unprotected. And on top of that, there's really no global or central kind of catalog, making reporting and other administration tasks super manual, and it makes the visibility really, really difficult. To make matters worse, data volumes are growing fast, and that's kind of driven by transaction volumes, as well as, needing to use richer data in applications. There's a report, sponsored by Seagate that was conducted by IDC that estimates that the enterprise data collection has increased by nearly 42% over the last 2 years, jumping from a total enterprise data volume of 1 kind of petabyte in 2020 to twice that in 2022. And so the growth in data collection can be attributed to increasing, use of analytics, cloud migration initiatives, and even the proliferation of IoT devices. For example, retailers can now track more data about each consumer. And at the same time, though, the challenge is that the backup kind of windows have remained the same or have shortened. And that's kind of driven by that need for higher availability. And this means, backing up data and making it available for testing, for refreshes and operational recoveries, they often tend to exceed the desired SLAs. But what we find is that most of the time organizations are unable to rapidly recover, what they need when they need it. For example, being able to recover specific tables or specific sets of rows when they need. Legacy tools are often restricted to all or nothing recovery methods that really just take a lot of time. And this adds operational risk and is just much slower than desired by the company. And now, sadly, many DBAs are still using purpose-built backup appliances or secondary storage systems that are susceptible to, different styles of attacks. Simply put, secondary storage systems and purpose-built backup appliances cannot satisfy the requirements of modern database protection. Many organizations still rely on insecure architectures that require loosely coupled backup hardware, software, secondary storage systems, which just creates a larger attack surface. And so imagine, waking up to all your backups being deleted and the backup software incapacitated in a cyber attack. The business is down as you scramble to really bring up the backup software and databases with any offline copy that you might be able to find. And all of these challenges are compounded as you add more kinds of databases. And as we've already touched on, not uncommon for an enterprise to have multiple database types. That could be everything from Microsoft SQL and DB2 to some Oracle and SAP HANA. And together, all of these challenges are having a huge impact on organizations. And we see it in the questions that database teams are asking us. There are questions like, how do I keep all of my database data secure and available to recover in the face of these attacks? How do I maintain a backup and recovery SLA when my data volumes are increasing and the backup kind of windows are shrinking? But also similarly, how do I rapidly recover only the data I need and make it available to secondary users? As well as, how do I centrally manage the numerous databases in the cloud as well as on-prem that I might have? And so this is why at Rubrik, we believe, there are a whole new set of requirements that organizations must have in order to protect their databases in this kind of new world. And the first is keeping database data secure and available to cyber attacks. And so these enterprises need a resilient kind of integrated platform that can deliver air-gapped, immutable, and access-controlled backups that can be easily replicated and archived to multiple locations. But they also need some automation around the protection. And this is to ensure the data is always protected in this changing landscape. Organizations need policy-based automation that can discover, secure, and manage retention of data in the variety of their databases across the enterprise and the public cloud. And with all of these databases in multiple places, enterprises need unified protection across cloud and on-premises. And that means organizations need a single console to manage databases, irrespective of the location, the variety, or even the volume, with ease of use, but also self-service from a single access controlled platform. And with all of that data, enterprises need faster backup and restores at scale, because all of this data that is now being kind of generated, organizations need smarter and higher performing backup technologies to deal with larger volumes of data within the shorter backup timeframes. So instantaneous recovery of data at any scale is also a huge requirement. But what about the recovery? After all, what good is a backup if you can't recover it? So enterprises need the ability to recover what they need when they need it. And this is the flexibility to restore specific data or entire workloads en masse. And so these requirements are super critical. You have security and automation, you have a single control plane, you have performance and efficiency, you have recovery. And so, Sean, when you see this list of requirements, what comes to mind as someone who's managed these types of systems at scale? Are these things obvious?
Well, the big thing that you need to consider here is when you look at the typical DBA in the workplace today, is they're stuck trying to do more with less. So anything that they can get their hands on that are going to make them more efficient is going to be a huge value add in their mind. So, I know I had tons of environments where I needed to have a team of about 6 people, and it was me. So right. To be able to know that, I have something that can help me not only automate some of the basic tasks, but ensure that I'm not skipping over some of those critical security steps that will enable me to recover later on. And those are the big things that I'm taking out of this that really drive home some value for a DBA.
Right. Great points. And so with that said, really interesting to hear, how Rubrik is able to address these requirements. So let me actually turn it over to Sean to take us through that next section.
I had a friend early in my career who was actually one of the first CISSPs I ever knew tell me that the only truly secure server in the world is the one that's buried in concrete and dumped in the bottom of the ocean. Obviously, in reality, that's going to render a system useless. So short of that, we really need to be able to take steps to ensure that and all of our database systems remain secure and available. Rubrik utilizes a zero trust by design approach to ensure every user or process that's going to attempt to access Rubrik is authenticated and authorized for whatever resource it's trying to request. Additionally, Rubrik is enforcing MFA on all local accounts, and it can also be integrated with corporate LDAPs to ensure users' identities are known out of the gate. Now, zero trust by design is just the tip of the iceberg with Rubrik. In order to recover a database, you need to ensure that it's protected. Rubrik is accomplishing this with global policy-driven automation, which we commonly refer to as an SLA domain. And let's take a closer look at that. SLA domains are simply define the backup rules required to comply with your business objectives. You can define your backup frequency and then how long you want to retain those backups, and Rubrik will manage the entire life cycle of your backup. You can then assign this SLA domain at a database host level to ensure all databases that get discovered on the host are protected. Then you can actually start managing by exception. Are there databases on a host that have more granular backup requirements than what's set for the host SLA domain? Well, now we can go in and assign a more specific SLA domain for that particular database. This really guarantees that you have a minimum level of protection for all discovered databases and more granular protection for those databases that truly need it. Now, anyone who's managed multiple systems can attest to the pain associated with managing all of those different database solutions. There was a time in my career that, I seriously contemplated donating a kidney instead of having to manage MS SQL environments, HANA, and Oracle all at once. Why? Because there was really no easy way to provide consolidated protection information on the entire backup landscape to manage. So I'd either have to build a ton of custom scripts to collect and aggregate the information, or I'd have to train some interns or junior staff to go perform the task. Rubrik's really eliminating this. So you don't have to waste time on non-value add activities like backup data aggregation. You have a single dashboard that's enabling you to view all the details on your backup and recovery activities on all of the databases in your landscape. You can even standardize your SLA domain per environment. So you could have one for dev, test, or prod, and then assign the multiple databases across the different platforms to the same protection policy. Pretty slick. Now, the typical backup strategy takes a lot of time and space. If you have full backups, incremental backups, differential backups, logs, then you need to repeat that cycle on a periodic basis. Typically, we're doing that weekly. This isn't a big deal for a database that's maybe a few hundred gig, but as databases grow into hundreds of terabytes in size and larger, full backups can easily start to exceed the backup window, and the amount of storage required to retain these backups can become quite costly in a real short period of time. Now, this is going to force you to really start to choose between your retention goals and your storage costs. It's not a fun position to have to be in. Rubrik looks at this from a different angle and uses an incremental forever approach for backups whenever possible. This means that you can take that initial full and you'll only need to take incremental backups going forward. If you're taking weekly fulls currently, let's say you have a 1-year retention policy, This would save you having to take 51 extra full backups over the course of a single year. So if we're talking like a 10 terabyte database, now you're talking about a storage savings of almost 510 terabytes. So how does Rubrik accomplish this? Well, each backup collects metadata and enables Rubrik to determine exactly what blocks need to be presented to perform point-in-time recovery. The resulting blocks are presented to the recovery tool in a native format. As an example, they show up as Oracle RMAN backup pieces. And then the tool, i.e. RMAN, manages the recovery from there. Justin alluded to this earlier. Backups are great, but recovery is what's going to make or break a DBA. If you've ever been a production down scenario, you truly appreciate the ability to get databases online ASAP. The real trick to this is knowing what to recover and how to best recover it. Rubrik provides a number of options to support granular recovery up through full database point-in-time recovery. Remember that kidney donation I mentioned earlier? Yeah, I would have happily parted with a kidney for a feature like LiveMount. You can think of LiveMount as essentially a thin provisioned, fully functional database. So the larger the database you're working with, the more valuable LiveMount becomes. Right? You simply select your point in time for recovery and select mount and a target host to run the database from. So here's a scenario. Something corrupted a few critical rows in your production 50 terabyte Oracle database. You know it happened sometime between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., but no one can really say for sure. Restoring this database in its entirety will take roughly 8 hours. So discovering that you've restored a backup that doesn't have the correct data in it is a very painful prospect. LiveMount is capable of bringing this same 50 terabyte database online in less than an hour. So you could theoretically live mount 8 different restore points in the time it takes you to perform a single full restore. Once you've identified the data that's required, you can use your database tool of choice to extract the required data and get it back into your production database.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So as you've heard today, and as you probably have already experienced yourself, protecting databases is really no easy task. And with today's current landscape, it only promises to get more challenging. But the good news is that with Rubrik, through our zero trust design, the global policy-driven automation, that incremental forever approach to backups, the global catalog management and control, and the flexible recovery and live mount, you can keep all your databases safe and readily available, so you can always recover what you need when you need it. And so Rubrik has a lot of experience protecting these types of systems. Rubrik as a company was founded in 2014 and has only really been selling for the last 8 years. And in that short amount of time, Rubrik has delivered purpose-built protection for databases like Microsoft SQL Server, some Oracle database, MongoDB, Cassandra, SAP HANA, DB2, and even in the cloud with Amazon Aurora. And so we see the trust and the belief in these solutions with the momentum that we have. Rubrik is protecting nearly 2 million database objects, with the largest database under protection coming in at an impressive 500 terabytes. And actually, I think we have some larger databases actually onboarding here as well. Rubrik is also protecting over 60,000 databases from some of our largest customers. That's customers big and small across multiple markets across the globe, and they all trust Rubrik to protect their databases. Customers like WebDB, Estee Lauder companies, Pampered Chef, and the Aaron's Company. And so as we start to close things out, I just wanted to share a couple of resources that I thought you'd find interesting or helpful. The first is an ebook that explores what modern database protection entails, examining the difference between the legacy and the modern approach that we kind of walk through here today. The second is a longer form white paper that really takes a look at how to accelerate backup and recovery speeds, protect against ransomware, and bridge the gap, I'd say, between backup and database admins related to database protection. And so for those who want to go a little bit deeper and maybe even get hands-on, I would highly recommend taking a look at Rubrik Explore, which is a collection of self-guided product tours. There's a tour of both Rubrik for Microsoft SQL and on Rubrik on the Oracle databases. And so for the SQL tour, you'll be guided through assigning SLA domains, being able to configure the ability to log ship. You can run a live mount, and you can even recover it down to a single item. The Oracle tour is pretty similar, but also enables you to test out some of the advanced cloning options, which are pretty powerful. They allow you to also run pre and post scripts, which is pretty cool to see. In addition to these resources, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Rubrik if you wanted to learn more. We would be more than happy, to get in touch and share how customers are protecting large database environments with Rubrik. And Sean and his team of database specialists, they can even provide a personalized kind of walkthrough, that more closely resembles your environment, if that's something that's something that would be interesting for you. And finally, I thought we would take advantage of having Sean here with us as our resident specialist, and ask him a couple of questions. Please absolutely feel free to ask any questions you may have, and the Rubrik team will follow up with you offline. So Sean, I wanted to start by asking, what brought you to Rubrik? If I'm not mistaken, like you said, you have over 25 years as a production DBA, both consulting, private sector, a lot of different companies. Did anything surprise you about the platform, coming from that side?
Well, what was interesting was as I got toward the latter half of my career, a lot of my focus was shifting more toward the security spectrum. And I didn't see a lot of products that were in the market that, were really geared toward security out of the box. It was always a bolt-on kind of concept. Right. And the more I talked to folks at Rubrik, the more I saw, okay, yeah, you're doing backup and recovery, but you're taking steps to make sure that nothing's going to happen to those backups, that they're going to be available when you need them. And that was a big sell to me because I've been in scenarios where we'd lost the backups.
Right. Yeah, a lot of interesting, great points there. When you and I were prepping for this event, you had mentioned that you'd been at Rubrik, I think you said almost 3 years, right? So really quite the achievement. It's definitely a ton of customer conversations. And so when you look at those conversations you've had with customers, is there anything that you think database teams just aren't thinking about that they should be?
What I tend to see with a lot of folks is it's a lot of speeds and feeds kind of concept where it's, I need to get the backup done quick, and that's all I'm really worried about. So what I find that I spend a lot of my time doing is saying, okay, let's pull back the veil a little bit and start talking about, okay, what if? So with your current process, what happens if this backup's lost? What happens if this host is compromised? How do you get around that? And you can, with some of these conversations, you really see the aha moment where they're like, oh, wow. If something like that was to happen, I'm dead in the water.
Right.
So, that whole concept of you got to get away from speeds and feeds and start thinking about the cyber resiliency end of things.
Right. Super interesting. One last question for you. As a long time DBA yourself, and from your time here at Rubrik, what would you say has changed for DBAs, if at all? And is there anything that Rubrik can do to help?
It's a very interesting question because I was actually pondering this a little bit. There's so much over the course of my career that has changed from a technology standpoint since the internet really became a viable tool. But the basic premise that has changed is the concept of security for a DBA. It used to be that the big security concerns for your databases were something along the lines of a denial of service attack or a SQL injection event that's going to allow data to get exposed. possibly somebody being able to read data off a file system.
Right.
But when you look at it now, it's so vastly different. If you look at how some of the vendors have changed how they do, how they offer their security packaging, it's used to be all a la carte kind of offering, and you'd have to buy this and buy that and buy the other thing. And now a lot of that's becoming embedded in it. When we look at what Rubrik's doing, is Rubrik's now saying, okay, you know what? Let's get everything under a single umbrella,
Right.
and make that, security component and the cyber resiliency component a heck of a lot easier for the organization as a whole. And as a result, leave less up to chance or something for the DBA to have to figure out.
Right. Yeah, it's super interesting because I think we've definitely seen that as a company of when we think about roles and responsibilities between IT and, like, let's say SecOps. I think there's like that inertia that the idea is, hey, security's job is to keep the bad guys out, and then when something happens, they tell us what to restore. And I think with these types of tools, with a single platform, something like Rubrik, allowing IT to be more proactive in the security and the posture, and actually having the data to be active in those discussions is definitely something that seems to have changed over the last couple of years. So a lot of great insights, and with that, that's all the content we had for you today. I hope you found it helpful and useful, or at least interesting. And so a big thank you to all of you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And a big thanks to Sean for joining us and letting me pick your brain. I'll pass it back to today's host to close us out. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks so much, Justin and Sean, for putting together a great presentation and for just emphasizing the importance of better securing our databases, which is something I think we all have ways to do better. We really appreciate your time today, and there's so much good stuff that I think we'll take away. So that's a wrap for the presentation. We do have one more piece of business, and that is the Amazon gift card prize drawing. As I mentioned at the top, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible for the prize, and we do have a winner for this particular event. The winner of today's $250 Amazon gift card is Jackie Hag from Michigan. Congratulations to you, Jackie. We will be in touch to get you your card. And folks, that's all for me today. With that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik, Justin, and Sean for making this event possible. I want to thank all of you, the attendees, as always, for being here and for your great questions and for your engagement here. Sorry we had a few technical issues with some refreshes today. We will hopefully, that'll go a little smoother for the next one, but we appreciate you all taking the time to be with us today for this special event. Enjoyed being here with you. That does conclude today's event. Have a great rest of your day.